Yeah.
At the end of the day, Boots is a good fighter, but who is he? They asked us. They said, Are you guys open to doing a Boots fight?" I said, 100%. At 147, Boots' team came back with they want to do it at 152.
We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. What on earth is going on with Jaron Boots Ennis' career? Ever since he signed to Eddie Hearn, it's looking shaky, baby. Devin Haney came out and said, who is he? He said he was offered a Jaron Boots Ennis fight and he accepted the fight. But Jaron Ennis and his team turned it down. You won't believe the reason why. In this video, I will break everything down that you need to know. And it's looking kind of shaky. Let's just be real. So, what up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. A brand new interview with Ring Champs. Devin Haney had a live in-studio sit-down, and he said he already talked about this, but this is a new interview where he's reaffirming that he could have fought Jaron Boots Ennis before Brian Norman. Now, obviously, he's fighting Brian Norman. If you follow my channel, you'll know that. He's fighting Brian Norman. I like that fight. Difficult fight. Very dangerous fight, in my opinion. But before Brian Norman, a name that came across the desk that he accepted was Jaron Boots Ennis. And he says the information came back and Boots' team decided against it. And they'll explain why. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's kind of looking shaky, though. Roll the clip.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Boots is a good fighter, but who is he?
Would you have fought Boots if that presented
Yeah,
itself?
no, they asked us. They said, Are you guys open to doing a Boots fight?" I said, 100%. At 147, Boots' team came back with they want to do it at 152. I want to do 152. I never even fought at 147 yet. I said, no, if you come down to 147, we can do the fight. I'm not gonna go to 152 for fucking Boots. Yeah. At the end of the day, Boots is a good fighter, but who is he?
But y'all don't hear me though. He said, I accepted the fight at 147. Boots' team came back with an offer at a catchweight of 152. But then he was like, why should I do that? Who is Boots? He a good fighter, but who is he for me to be doing all that when I haven't even fought at 147? Listen again.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Boots is a good fighter, but who is he?
Would you have fought Boots if that presented itself?
Yeah, no, they asked us. They said, Are you guys open to doing a Boots fight?" I said, 100%. At 147, Boots' team came back with they want to do it at 152. I want to do 152. I never even fought at 147 yet. I said, no, if you come down to 147, we can do the fight. I'm not gonna go to 152 for fucking Boots. Yeah. At the end of the day, Boots is a good fighter, but who is he?
Bro, I don't care what none of y'all say. This is a terrible look for Jaron Ennis. And I know, like, I've been here so long at the top of my craft, the best in the business, and it's not even close. I know how this story goes. The reality is, Boots Ennis, he kind of looks bad, right? Kind of looks bad. And as a result, there's going to be people who they get mad at Boxing Ego, right? And they're like, yo, Ego, why are you down on Boots? This doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. You're hating on Boots. Yada, yada, yada. But I can assure you that is not the case. I have no reason to hate on any fighter. It doesn't even make sense. Why would I need to hate on a fighter? How do I benefit from that? Makes no sense at all for me to hate on a fighter. But the reality is when fighters make certain decisions and the decisions are questionable, then we got to talk about it. It's no different. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's Steven Seagal where they're above the law. And I'm not finna talk about it because it hurts your feelings. Here's the thing. I question Jaron Ennis and working with Eddie Hearn. Now you see why. He's been with Eddie Hearn over a year now. What has become of it? Right? Name, is he a bigger star than when he was with Showtime or on PBC cards or whatever? I don't think so. And then now you have several fighters, Teofimo Lopez, different fighters saying they've been lowball from Rashidi Ellis to Josh Kelly, right? And they're saying, hey, why you ain't fight me? Da-da-da-da. And Boots is just, oh man, the truth will come out. See, here's the thing, and it makes it unbelievable. When somebody gives you grace, like let's say one fighter's lying on your name. Okay, cool. Two fighters are, but when it gets to 3 and 4 and 5 and beyond, you can't tell me that everybody else is the problem and not the common denominator, right? Like if one guy, no matter where he goes, different cities around, and he keeps getting in a fight at a bar, I can assure you it has something to do with that person, right? The world doesn't even work like that where it's just there's a black cloud over one person nonstop and they're not doing anything. They're doing everything right, but they're just walking around with a black cloud over there. I don't believe that. And now you have Devin Haney, who's like, I was down to fight him at 147. The reason this looks bad for me is you look at it and you tried to convince the fans that you make welterweight easy. When people like me were saying that, hey, this kid is big, he gonna have to move up by the age of 30. I said it and then it happened. But then Boots was trying his best to combat these talks, and he was like, man, a lot of y'all listen to goofy stuff and these YouTubers, and they are like, oh, I struggle to make weight. I was at weight on Tuesday and I was eating good and blah, blah, blah. You did all this to convince people that people like me, who's been saying you're too big and you're going to outgrow the division, that you were easily making welterweight. And then now at the tail end of it, you also said you wanted to be undisputed. See, I hold people to what they say. I don't make up goals for you. I didn't tell Boots to say he wants to stay at welterweight until he becomes undisputed. He said that, and his team said that. And then now when I bring it up because you didn't fulfill that prophecy, now I'm the bad guy? It don't work like that. So everything I'm holding Boots to is a standard that he set. You tried so hard to convince people that you make welterweight easy, but guess what? You had an opportunity to fight Teofimo, opportunity to fight Devin Haney. And you say now all of a sudden, I talked to the doctor, I can't make 147. This looks bad, bro, because you could make 147 for a horrible Karen Chukadzian fight where you did worse in the rematch, right? You can make it for David Avocado. You can make it for Chris Van Herdeen. You can bring Sergey Lipinets up. You can fight Via. You can fight all these obscure names, right? All these obscure names that aren't big names. But then T.O.'s calling you out. He been doing all this stuff to black people and talk about black people. People feel like you can shut him up. And then you're like, nah, we ain't fighting T.O., we moving up. Devin Haney, he's telling you out his own mouth, this was the fight they offered me before Brian Norman, and I was down. He said, I'll accept the fight at 47, but I haven't even fought at 147. Why would I jump up to a catchweight? Boots is cool. He a good fighter, but I'm not doing all that for him. And that's fair play. Why would Devin? He just fought Jose Ramirez. you need that much of an advantage. You feel like you'll be that compromised making the weight one more time. So whoever, like, the management of Boots is absolutely dreadful. These decisions and how it's playing out and how the fights are playing out, absolutely dreadful, because you beating Devin Haney, he's a big name, bigger than the people you fought. You seen Ryan, he couldn't keep the momentum because he popped dirty, right? But you seen how initially we didn't know Ryan popped dirty, and you seen what beating Devin Haney initially did for Ryan Garcia. The only thing that tainted it is he failed a PED test with the Osterine. But all you have to do is beat Devin Haney and then not fail a PED test, then you will be given the credit for it, right? So to me, that's like a layup. These are like easy layups for Boots' career. Whoop on T.O., whoop on Devin Haney. They're already smaller than you, like meaning they had to come up and weight at some point in the recent years. You're a big welterweight, and then now you just absolutely can't make welterweight anymore, but you can make it for David Avocado and other non-desirable fights. I find that to be very challenging to understand. Then you move up to 54, people are like, fight Virgil Ortiz. You're like, I need tune-ups. And then now you're coming out saying, I don't need tune-ups. I never said that. But Turkey said you need a tune-up. So who are we to believe? So Boots can say what he wants, but everyone else is going to say what they want and give their opinion on it. This looks bad. Multiple fighters said that your side is lowballing them. Teofimo was calling you out. He said you guys turned it down. You had Devin Haney, who's also on wax, saying, yo, I would fight Boots, but I'm not doing it at 152. Why would your team even try to fight Devin at 152? Like, Mayweather fought Canelo at 152 because he was at 47 and Canelo's at 54. And Canelo said he would fight at a catchweight of 150 back in the day. So Floyd held him to his word. That's it. That's why that happened. And we know Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao, they stayed true to their walk-around weight was close to their fight weight. So smaller, older Floyd Mayweather, yeah, I can understand him fighting Canelo at a catchweight. You have no reason. You're already bigger than Devin Haney, I would imagine, from the eye test. You have no reason why you shouldn't probably make the sacrifice to just make 147 one more time. You know, this new generation is really missing the mark, bro. And it's making boxing like a horrible watch right now, because a perfect example that I was a part of, like I'm part of the history because I've been covering boxing that long, was Jermall Charlo. Jermall Charlo went about it the best way possible. He too was outgrowing his division, where he was 154 and it was becoming harder and harder to make weight, right? And he told people in interviews and post fights, after his fights, I'm going to have to move up soon because this is getting hard. But he had a little problem called Julian J. Rock Williams, who was ranked at the time. He had a good record at the time, and he was calling out Charlo. And he was like, this turkey won't fight me. Charlo's ducking, blah, blah, blah. You know what Jermall Charlo did? And he don't get credit for it. Jermall Charlo said, all right, bump that. He calling me out. I'm a turkey. I'll show you a turkey. And he stayed at 154 long enough to whoop J-Rock, had a sensational, crazy counter uppercut that was legendary. Probably the best counter uppercut highlight that I've ever seen in boxing. Ush, ush, and then uppercutted him and then finished him off, then moved up. That is what you do. Handle it. You've made the sacrifice for X amount of time. Do it one last time and get that big fight or the big name, or leave with a clean slate. Because guess what? If Jermall Charlo didn't do that and Jermall Charlo moved up and you had this guy, J-Rock, who was ranked at 54, respected, and he was calling you out and saying you were a turkey, then guess what everybody would have done? Everybody and their mama would have been like, Charlo's a duck. He didn't want to squabble with Julian J. Rock Williams. So he moved up and ran out the division. So that's why you do what Charlo did. I'll show you I'm better than him, and then I'll move up, and then we'll be at a clean slate. Now nobody can say nothing. You can't say I ducked. You seen what I did when I fought him. You see what I'm saying? But then for Boots, he got two big names between Teofimo and Devin Haney, two big names that he could have easily fought, dust them off, and then at 54, you could get to the Virgil Ortiz's or whatever. So I have no idea why Boots' team is moving like this, but this looks bad. And then Boots gets mad and gets on these interviews and act like everyone's against him. Oh, y'all just saying this because I don't do a lot of talking. No, we're just saying this because the way you're moving don't really make sense and don't paint you in a good light. That's why we're saying this, right? There's no like everybody's against you. And for the record, if Boots were to fight Devin Haney at 147, I would pick Boots by a long shot. I would give Devin Haney literally a very slim chance to do something with Boots Ennis. So I don't think that Boots is like petrified of Devin Haney, but it still looks bad because you spent all of this time trying to combat and beat allegations that you were a weight bully and you stayed at 47 and you were struggling to make weight. I was making all the videos. I'm not deleting nothing. The videos are up where I was making videos about Jaron Boots Ennis saying he looked weight drained for several fights. And he was trying to respond back to people like me and be like, no, they don't know what they talk about. I make weight easy. I have a nutritionist. I work out hard. This weight is easy. And now that you did that, you look bad because if you agreed with me, it wouldn't look as bad because you would have been like, hey, I can't make 47 easily. This is very hard to do, which I could clearly see from the eye test because I'm boxing ego. And the ego Weight Watchers, aka ILL, I've been doing this for a while. I could see you're big for the division. I predicted that you, by the age of 30, you would be up and out of welterweight. I've already predicted it. The videos are still up. So if you would have agreed with me, it actually would have fared better for you because then we'd be like, all right, we knew this for a long time that he was struggling to make weight, so he just had to move up. But you tried to argue with the crowd and say, everybody else, we were tripping about you being draining yourself and being too big for the division, and it's a real sacrifice to make weight. And then now you can't sacrifice it for big names like Teo and big names like Devin Haney. This is not going to age well, bro. This is not going to age well because that's what happens when you're not truthful, when you don't keep it real, right? You spent all this time making it sound like everybody else was the problem and you weren't draining yourself, you weren't dehydrating yourself, and you felt good and comfortable at welterweight. And then now at the tail end, you're saying, I can't make it. I got to fight Devin Haney at a catchweight. That also makes you look bad. Devin Haney just told you. I never fought at 147. What do I look like fighting him at 152? So you look bad that your team is even offering Devin Haney a fight, knowing he don't have no completed fight at the full welterweight, and you're trying to move him up even more. You see what I'm saying? So whoever's advising you and handling your career has been god awful. It has been, all these decisions have been awful. You're fighting Lima, an undesired, obscure name, no better than the names you've been fighting. And it can't just be everybody else's problem. Oh, Josh Kelly didn't want it. Oh, everybody was busy. Oh, Devin Haney this. Oh, Teofimo that. It can't be. There's no way it could just be everyone else's fault but yours, but your team, but how you're moving. And then I could go deeper. Pause. But your boy Ego, I could go deeper. You had Jaron Ennis, who he already could have moved up to 54, and then we wouldn't even be talking about Devin Haney. I'm sure Turkey and whoever offered Devin Haney the Boots option or was looking into it, they wouldn't even consider you if you moved up. But then you didn't fight Virgil Ortiz and move up and say, hey, I got to stay at 47. So the timing on this looks horrible. horrible. Could have moved up to 54 already to fight Virgil Ortiz. There was definitely a deal that was on the table, but you say I'm staying at 47. Stay at 47 for Stanionis, a unknown name who happened to be a champion, inactivity, things like that. He didn't have many fights in the last couple of years, had appendicitis, all this type of stuff, right? And then now you're like, oh, doctor said I got to move out of 147. Doctor said I need a backiotomy. You know what I mean? So for me, this looks bad for Boots because it's passive aggressive, real hot and cold. I'm not ready to move up to 54. Then he fought Karen Chukadzian in the rematch and said, man, people said the performance was underwhelming. You look worse in the rematch. And he said, oh, that's because I need to move up and weight. Okay, fight Virgil Ortiz. Turkey got a deal for you at 54. Oh, no, I want to stay at 47 and unify and become undisputed. Okay, you fight Stanionis. That's a step towards undisputed. Brian Norman got a belt. People want to see that fight. The day before Brian Norman fought in Japan, after your team had previously said, oh, we tried to get in touch with them and they didn't assure us a date. And then the day before he fought in Japan, Brian Norman, and had a crazy knockout of the year against Jin Sasaki. The day before, Boots Ennis announced he's moving to 54. So if you don't see how the timing is bad on all this, then you're just a man fan. My word for a radical fan. You are a Boots man fan, and you got your steel toe boots on, and you just cheerleading for Boots. The timing is horrible. Don't want to move up to 54, look bad versus Karen Chukadzian in the rematch, say, oh, it's because 147 is tough to make. Okay, move to 54 and fight Virgil Ortiz. There's an offer there. Oh, no, I want to stay at 47. Then people like me say you're draining yourself. And you said post-fight, oh, man, these stupid YouTubers, they paint narratives saying I struggle to make weight. Fast forward to the future, now he's saying his doctor told him he's only fighting at half capacity or whatever, and he needs to move up. And then he announced that he's moving up the day before Brian Norman. And that's the unification people want. Now you have people like Devin Haney, which would have been a big name fight for you. And you're just think about what I'm saying. Make the sacrifice at 147 for a name that people can recognize. Boots versus Devin Haney, where you have 2 belts. So that would be Devin Haney would have a chance for 2 belts. It'd be a big fight. He agreed to fight you at 47, and you say no, 152. I knew that would be a deal breaker. Your team would have to know it's going to be a deal breaker. Devin's not going to move up for you. And instead of fighting a big name, you say, I'm moving up. I'm fighting Lima. And then getting mad at people who say you need a tune-up, and you do an interview with YSM and say, I don't need no tune-ups. I don't know where you guys are getting this. Why are you fighting Lima then? The quickest way to make people believe that you don't need a tune-up is to not fight Lima, which is perceived as a definite tune-up. So this don't even make sense what's going on with Boots' career. I stand on that. We unpacked. Live streaming can be tough, which is why I use StreamYard. Click the link in the description for StreamYard, which is an awesome tool that enables you to set up your stream with ease of use. Get great results with live streaming. It's what I use. Stream to social media with ease with StreamYard. Live streaming is here to stay. Engage with your audience using StreamYard. Great way to reach out to your audience and connect. So you need a tool that can do that. If you're new to YouTube and you're struggling to get views, one tool I can provide to you is TubeBuddy. I've been on YouTube over 10 years. I use TubeBuddy daily to crank out videos just like this one that you're watching. Learn how the pros do it with TubeBuddy. YouTube receives a lot of traffic, which also means a lot of creators, a lot of people putting out content. So you need to learn the ropes so you know how to separate yourself, especially if you're new, but even if you're a pro, use TubeBuddy. The link is in the description. Get more views, more subscribers, and a higher click-through rate, so ultimately you can realize all of your online goals. Use my affiliate link in the description and grow your channel fast.